So it takes me on to my next question, really. Having workflows within automation, is this something that is taking us away from and redirecting our energy? So instead of focusing on design, we're focusing on technology behind that design. Do you think? Do you think kind of programming the robot or programming the software to look for certain elements within our door, certain parameters, etc.? Do you think that's redirecting our attention from what we've come out to do? We've come out to be designers. Instead, we're now programmers as well as designers. How do you see the importance of having those workflows and the distraction that is causing within architectural or AEC industry?
I see it as critical because you have to be aware of this, all the possibilities and all the advantages that you could gain with the automation. Because if you don't do it, maybe another one would do it, and you will actually be left behind when the train leaves. Because
you're talking about competition.
It will be a competition between the different companies. Mm-hmm. If I don't automate, mm-hmm. the other one would do, because if the technical possibilities is present, somebody's going to use it.
Yeah.
It better be me.
So you're saying competition is what's driving automation?
Yeah. We all want to be the best.
We all want to be the best. I love it. I love it. Strive to always be at the top. Okay, so when we're revising our models then, and we're revising our automated workflows and things like that, is this something that can be reused between, a project to another project? Or is there a lot of waste happening at the moment in the industry, do you think? So, we might automate tasks for one project, but how do we carry that on and guarantee that we're going to be saving time on the next project and the next project moving forward? Do you think there's a bit of a silo or a bit of a gap in the industry with getting that information across to the next project?
I see it a lot of times, actually, when I'm wondering if, why don't people actually reuse all that knowledge or reuse those configuration or those settings, because they do it all over again. And I actually see it a lot. So I think that's a point that actually that needs a lot more attention. And some programs also have been pretty bad at reusing all those settings and stuff like that. But I see it, they are getting better and better from that perspective, that you could create templates for both for Revit, or when you work in the cloud, you could have templates for when you set up projects and configuration and stuff like that. The programs are getting better there, but they're not perfect.
So Claus, we talk about automation improving things, but there is this kind of big lag, I think, within the AEC industry at the moment where, for example, we've got different layers of people working on a project. So, an end user might be working on the software, coming up with some automated tasks to make their life a bit easier while they're working on a design. But moving this information from project to another project, there's almost like a silo. There's almost like a brick wall in between each project that we don't take those lessons learned. Yes, we might have meetings about lessons learned, but the actions following those meetings, how do we take on board what we need to know into the next meeting or into the next project? What would you say is the best ideal magic wand scenario for that?
Yeah, it's a problem, because the person that is able to actually take all this knowledge and bring it forward to the other process, it must be involved in the entire process of the project. And it's quite costly to have a smart person involved all the time, but we're not contributing to the end product that the firm is selling. So it's very costly to have that. And the super users within the project are often, or normally, they're not the same person starting the project that is actually ending it. That's why I think sometimes the information gets lost. And the ones starting project A, maybe, they are already starting project B before the end team had ended the first project. So they're overlapping all the time, and it's going on and on and on. So they don't have the time to actually stop and take all of their knowledge and bring it into, for instance, making a perfect template for this software and another template for that software.
Yeah, it's almost like a debt rolling over, isn't it? It's just kind of a domino effect of knowledge not being passed on, and it just kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the domino effect just carries on. You see a lot of this where new consultants are then hired to then kind of rectify the mistakes, or kind of just kind of look at things from a different, fresh perspective of how we can redefine the way that we work within the model that we work. So if we was to kind of look at creativeness coming out from generative design and moving into kind of the flair of design where we talk about generative design. Do you think, this is the now, and we're talking about generative design now and coming up in the future. What do you think is potentially after that, after generative design? What do you think is going to be the next step, the next big milestone we'll have within the industry?
I can't imagine what's coming after that, because in reality, we haven't really seen generative design being applied in a broader scale. But I think that is what we're going to see, because it's like the AI. Everybody talks about Chat GPT, and the G in GPT, that actually stands for generative, because people have experienced that when they ask them to write a poem, it will get you something. But then you have to be more and more specific. You'll say, how many words do you want to have? It should be like this. So it should be like it's written by a 10-year-old. You have to be more and more specific, but then you get the perfect output. And that is actually what we will have with the generative design for building as well. We will start by saying, okay, I want this nice flat layout, for instance, and then you get a suggestion, but you'll have to say, I want more windows, I want a bigger bathroom, and you design that way instead. I will think that will become the normal.
You'll think that'll become the normal. Yeah. I like it. So in terms of generative design then, is it helping the architect or designer, or is it helping the client?
It's mainly helping the client, I think, because you will probably get a better product, a better design.
Do you think?
Yeah, and then it's different of the different aspects or side of the building industry. For instance, it's for the architectural side. Maybe the architects will say, "Okay, you're not going to creativity or less good ideas, maybe." But if you look from the construction part of the business, I think that the possibilities are fantastic. For instance, so today, when you're gonna create a construction for a house, for instance, you will have a smart person looking at the house and making a suggestion of what the construction would look like, and they would do dimensioning and doing studs and beams and stuff like that, and then they would do a calculation to see, okay, will this last? And if it lasts, the person will probably say, fine, I'm done. But if you would do it with a generative design, then the computer would say, okay, I'll just calculate it 1,000 times again to see, can I use less material? Could I use more sustainable material or more economical material? And you would probably get a better result, because the computer has the power, or it doesn't get tired of doing the same calculation over and over again. It will just do it.
Yeah. So automation can help us become more globe friendly, more sustainable in the way that we're acting and designing. Instead of wasting, time, and instead of wasting resource, instead of wasting materials, it's a way to kind of test it again without the humans getting tired of it. I love that point. Okay, so I think we've got we've spoken a lot about automation and generative design. Let's just kind of go back onto the artistic freedom side of things. When looking into practices and working with practices, is there a limitation, do you think, to artistic freedom nowadays in comparison to what there was in the past?
Yeah, I would say artistic freedom, isn't it always under pressure? I would say if you, I've actually looked up now a definition of artistic freedom that's the United Nations have created. That is actually the freedom to imagine, create, and distribute diverse cultural expressions, free of governmental censorship, political interference, or the pressures of non-state actors. That's what I say.
But those are the pressures that are always there, right?
It's always going to be a pressure. There's always going to be people that have an interest in to decide what people should do and think and say, and how things should look. And you see it all the day. I see in the daily politics, people are discussing, or the new houses, if they are nice or if they're ugly, and people will always have different.
The repetitiveness of it, but the units that come. It's the same with urban markers. You know, there's, for example, in Wales, there's, in Cardiff in particular, there's this building that was designed and presented and built at the end. But it's, some people say it looks ugly. You know, that's the first word that will come to mind. But then other people will say, well, you know, it's an urban marker. You can't miss it. You know where you're going to go as soon as you see that point. But then there's other people that say, well, there was other designs that was so much better that was proposed. Why was it this one that was chosen? Is it because it was cheaper? Or was it, you know, cheaper to go? Did they go for this one because it was more expensive? They thought the quality will be better. You know, it's those kind of conversations that everyone has their own artistic flair. And from a conversation I had just yesterday, someone mentioned that, you know, if you try to do something, you know, within art, whether it's a hand-drawn something, whether it's, you know, details, or whether it's drawing, yours will always be different to someone else's, and someone will always like yours better than theirs. Or there's always that, and you, as you say, you try to be the best, so you try to do the better version of that drawing or that representation, and everyone will have an opinion. So that kind of, you know, the definition that you've just come up with, the politics, the pressures that you have on your artistic ability is something that we can kind of relate to in everyday pressures of when we're trying to be innovative. I suppose artistic flair is trying to be innovative, trying to do something new, trying to do, you know, something that works better, and for everyone and for the purpose of that. So automation versus artistic freedom. We can say that they both can work together, but we can say that it's a lot of work to get there.
Look, one of the things about advantages we have with the automation, that is also, you would have different opinions where it's good or bad. Because I would say an advantage of the automation would be of probably increased quality. But some people would say that it's less quality because it's not thought through every process. It's just repeated processes. And that is, it depends on what you think, because sometimes man-made is really good, or sometimes fabricated or automated is really good. For instance, if I want to offer you a shrimp salad, you would probably say that a man-made would be nicer than a factory-made. But
definitely.
Say, okay, here you can try my parachute for a job. I made it myself. I think you would say,
definitely not.
I want the one made in a factory.
Absolutely.
So it depends. And that is the funny things about this stuff. We're talking about both automation and the artistic freedom. It depends.
I love that. That's a really good way to look at it. You know, where we want human intervention and where we want automation can differ for the different tasks that we have in life. I like it. On that note, Claus, I would like to thank you very much for your time on this podcast today. It's been great fun listening to you talk about automation and artistic flair, and getting to know what both of those actually mean within the industry and beyond. It's been a great pleasure. Any final comments from you, Claus?
Thank you so much for bringing me into this.
It's absolutely my pleasure. So thank you very much, Claus. Always great to work with you. The only Claus Vemgaard. Thank you very much for joining us on this podcast. And see you in the next podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.